Here we go. I think we are now recording. All right. Well, here we are. Stand up, April 23rd, 2021.
It says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. Is that a new thing?
Yes. So, well, I thought you maybe you weren't on the meeting. Oh, you weren't on the meeting earlier this week. So
Tuesday. Yeah.
What we're doing now is we are streaming the meetings to YouTube. I'm setting them as private to begin with. And then after we are done, I turn them on to, assuming we don't want to pull them back, I turn them on the public. And the nice thing is that it records them. I don't have to do anything aside say what playlist it's in.
That's great.
And click from private to public. But yeah, so that is that. Okay, so for those people interested in the live, that's that. All right. That being said, Michelle, stand up.
Stand up. Thanks for review from Quentin on some stuff in the 209A. Motion to modify. I think we're still waiting for a reply from Kate about that. Just the last review before it goes live. So some stuff to change. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to change the change button, the make changes button, or the change your answers button, or if you wanted to discuss that or what. So that's a question for Quentin.
I guess it doesn't really matter if we change it. I just think we should have a distant choice, but I don't know if the one that we have now is any better than the one you picked out. So I just like people to have a consistent experience when they're going from form to form.
Sure.
But I don't think it matters if you change it, since we haven't settled. We didn't really choose that. It was just kind of a default that we put in.
Okay. Sure. So we can defer the discussion. While I checked on the other things you said, because they were relevant, I think. And I can't. Not doing a good job bringing to mind. Mia had an issue about that was relevant to the documents and docs table for one of the interviews she had. I was looking at the issues like a week ago or something. And there was an issue where we said for displaying documents or something, or emailing documents. Maybe it was something else. I don't know. But I will try to link to that issue. How about that? Sorry, I'm a little
good
today.
That's okay.
So, links. And I think that is it. I actually can't remember. I'm sorry. I'm really out of it today. Carry on.
Okay. We'll move on down the line then. Quentin.
So I think that the CRA motion to dismiss is ready to go live. And I saw Caroline just before we jumped on said she'll send it to some SMEs. So we'll hopefully that'll be ready to go up soon. And I think it works well to have like something that I do every week be finishing a form. So people have ideas for a next priority form that someone has started that needs a little push and would benefit from getting converted to AL document, especially. Let me know. Yeah, Caroline, you unmuted, so I'd love to hear your ideas.
Because I'm going through the 209A advocate improvements, I'm realizing that I think it was Mike Carroll, somebody was working on the 209A for protecting pets. And I just went through and I thought, well, that's a form. I don't think it's completely finished, but I think he did a lot of work on it, and I think he got a lot of input from Kate. So I don't know how close that is to being finished, but it seems to me, given the impact of violence to pets on domestic violence survivors, that would be a really good, especially where we are with the translations. I talked to Rochelle earlier this week, and we've got enough money to translate the interview and the pages into 4 other languages.
Oh, that's great. 4 languages? Wow.
Is exciting.
Great.
Yeah, so I think it's Spanish, Portuguese, possibly Vietnamese, and Chinese, because ATASK is going to also review the Asian ones.
That's
So
great.
connected to that, though, because I spent, if not months, certainly weeks, talking to the court certified. They are court certified interpreters, or they were at the time, the Spanish interpreters. Apparently, in Spanish, there is no word for parent, so it's either mother or father. And I think we need to. I don't know that we need to do this before we send for translations, but while we're doing these little tweaks before we send off for translation, I think we want to think about and maybe talk to ATASK and maybe some Portuguese speakers whether we're going to have the same issue, because I don't think it's a big difference to change parent to mother, father. I mean, it's going to be tedious, but it's not as big as this whole advocate thing, as filing on behalf of advocate. And then we would have a gender, because you have this readability issue where it's he, yo, he, yos. I mean, I don't know about, again, you're going to have this issue with children as well. So I think it's worth talking to some of the multilingual DV advocates to see what, just so we're aware of it. So if we make a decision to do one thing or the other, it's a little bit different from eviction, right? I mean, this isn't like MAID. When you're talking about family law and then you start talking about gender, it's pretty important. And maybe also LARED, as Kate was talking about, because we still have, even though we're tweaking, we still have May and June to get this stuff. I mean, I know we want to get it done as quickly as possible, but we also don't want to have to keep going back and doing tweaks. And if we think about this stuff ahead of time, we can make some decisions and document whatever and then come back to it. But I think we ought to just think about this whole thing about, I do know in Spanish there is no word for parent. And I know that I'm pretty sure children is gender specific. I don't know if you can have if you can talk about children together, plural, whether the gender makes a difference. I don't know, but I think we ought to have these conversations with both gender aware people and multilingual people. But I'm excited
Lisa
that we
had
got all
some
this money.
Yeah, I only know a little bit. I mean, I don't know if we have to absolutely have decisions on that, Caroline, because I know you're saying May and June, but it's going to take us a couple of weeks to get the translations integrated once we get them back. And it's like at least a week of lead time plus,
So
I would say like maybe a few days.
But have you got a June 30th deadline? Are you getting paid? Do you need to get the work done by June 30th?
No, I guess it's only whatever the Klavic money deadline is. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, the translations, I think the translations have to be done by June 30th, but then we can incorporate, I mean, I know we want to get it done as soon as possible, but, and I leave it up to you guys to decide what you want to do, but I just, figured I'd be the pain in the neck and bring these questions up as usual.
I mean,
well, if we're talking about that, then I'm wondering, the biggest payoff for us, and I was thinking, oh, we'll do this manual work, but the biggest payoff for us will be if it's translated in the assembly line repository rather than the MA Virtual Court repository. So it might be worth taking
moving it to
a week or two to move everything over to assembly line. Like, I wouldn't have prioritized that just because it's a working interview that a lot of people use and it's big and complex, but that might have some payoff in terms of like just the way that some questions are asked is different, not very different, but it would translate it in the right place. So we could just drop in those translation files for other interviews in the future, which would be a big help.
Yeah. And
I don't know if that's worth holding things up for though. But I tend to think they'll be able to, that the translators will be familiar with the issue of translating parent into a term that makes sense to
Well,
Spanish.
what they do,
speakers.
okay, so what they do is they'll say madre / padre, and they'll say ella / I can't remember what the other one is, but I mean, they do that bearing in mind that readability in plain language is fairly new in the US. It's brand spanking new across the world. And so they're just the plain language people, like plain language. There is an international conference that's working on this, and they're developing one of these ISO standard things out of Denmark, I think it is, for plain language. And of course, they're not going to want to do what translators have traditionally done, which is to put all these, slashes in, because that doesn't matter what language you speak or read. That's not easy to read, and people may be used to it, but we're moving away from he, she, and using there, and then it's making some of our sentences pretty awkward. So we're not actually using it; we're just restructuring the sentence. But I'm
But
not
is your thought
pushing
there,
for-
if we ask for the gender, then we can use the proper pronouns?
for some
But then
things.
what do we do if the person doesn't have, doesn't fall into the binary?
Well, I guess that,
gender?
that's what I'm saying is I don't think that we should make these decisions, but I think we should talk to both the people at LaRed and multilingual experts about it, and not put it off for a month, but just because I think because we're thinking about it, we ought to do a little bit of investigation about it. This is a cultural thing. So although the gender awareness and gender sensitivity is a big issue in the United States and England and other English-speaking countries, I think we need to remember that in other countries and in other cultures, the language is already gendered. I mean, I don't think anybody's talking about making la table neuter, and so I don't know what the implications are.
They are in Spanish. Like I looked into it a little while ago, but I don't think it's very popular. That's the problem. It's like it just be confusing for people.
Exactly. We might end up being overcorrect and then confusing people. So that's all I'm saying is check in with those people and say what's happening in gender sensitivity, gender awareness, gender, in your language, or even locally, specifically in Massachusetts. Well, for us in Massachusetts, our people, how important is it to do this? And then we just make a note about it, but I think we need to at least think about it. And the other thing that we could do is add a note somewhere saying, we're aware that some sort of note to user, note to reader, that we're trying to be gender sensitive, but we're struggling with the translation or something like that. So we acknowledge to people that we're aware this is an issue, but this is the best we can do and still make it readable or something like that.
I was going to recommend at least putting it in our documentation somewhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Either for the Assembly Line project or for the Mass Access project.
I'd also like to just point out in the chat, it looks like Lisa has some experience with this in Louisiana, well, at least as they do practice it. Because I don't know if you want to talk to that or if you just want to leave your chat.
My connection's unstable, so I'm capturing it, but
oh no,
translation.
We
translation work with different.
Oh, unfortunately, on my end, it really is unstable. I'm sorry, Lisa.
I couldn't understand the word you said, Lisa.
But
from having a lot of Spanish speakers. Oh, sorry.
There we go. Oh no, you're sort of like cut up now. Now we can now we can hear you and you look fine.
Quickly because my connection might crash again. Anyway, we benefit from we can use machine translation. I studied Spanish for years and I've traveled pretty extensively in Latin America, so I have some background. But what we do is we tap into folks who either grew up in a dual language household or have a greater level of fluency. And the other key issue is cultural competence. I would be I know it's important to be gender sensitive, but when you're creating documents for a particular community, you want to create them so that community understands them. And one thing
Right.
that a lot of modulation reviewers said is that certain words that may translate correctly in terms of like absolute grammatical or syntactical correctness. However, culturally, they may have overtones that are really important to understand, like the difference between court and tribunal, that one had a tribunal, they said had a heavier or more inquisitorial.
Now
Somebody
David's gone quiet.
who has cultural as well as language competence and fluency, or competency and fluency, to go over with.
Yeah, Lisa, you're cutting in and out again, but I think your point is well taken. So I think the notion is, Caroline, in keeping with your suggestion, we just do the same sort of thing we're doing with ATASK, but
Right.
just engage a relevant community.
Yeah. And I noticed Lisa said they use Padres in Louisiana. This was a huge issue, parent, specifically the word parent, with the court interpreters who work exactly with these populations. And, a few years ago, because the court changed visitation to parenting time. And we wrote a lot of articles about it. It was a really big, important issue. And then we had to deal with Spanish translators who work with our Spanish-speaking populations, really debating whether we couldn't call it parenting time because they couldn't translate it. And so Padres, I don't think would work here. And also our Spanish speakers are primarily Puerto Rican and then Dominican in
So
Massachusetts.
I think the key is to, as we are with ATASK, find a relevant community of individuals who are culturally
Lisa,
competent
you're
for
muted.
this group.
You're muted.
Oh, Lisa, good to see you again. We
I
caught
was
some
just
of it.
saying, sorry, y'all. I have to keep it brief because my connection's really unstable today. So it's Friday.
There was a lot of good stuff there. We got a
I'll
lot of
stick
good
with
stuff.
the chat if you want.
Thank you, Lisa, for sure. You got a lot of good stuff there. So yes, so Caroline, so I guess the question is, Caroline, I mean, you are the ones doing the translation and it's going through the Clavic money and everything. So I think we support those decisions, however you guys want to make them. But, and also from your earlier question about timing and stuff, all of our timing for the translation stuff was all driven by the Clavic money because they have the deadline. So our fear was just that we wouldn't have the time to do much that you could use within your window.
Right.
So the translation was perfect because we thought it was something we could do right now.
Yeah.
Quentin's points is well taken about maybe there might be a benefit to moving stuff over. I don't know if Quentin, maybe that changes your thought about instead of taking up a new form for the week, maybe you take over some of these and moving them over. But I also agree with Quentin that it shouldn't stop. Not having those moved over shouldn't stop the translation. So
yeah. And I'd love to see, maybe
Actually,
you could just,
what is the timing, do you think? Because I could probably, honestly, the simple forms took like 45 minutes to migrate. Maybe this will take 6 hours, 7 hours. If it's like per individual form would take 45 minutes, but it might be a lot faster.
I mean, essentially, they turn it around in 2 weeks, which is a long time because I think we are going with Hello Globo. I talked to Iris Coloma Gaines about it. We're kind of sold on their company, and really, the Clavic money needs to be spent by June 30th. But that means they just have to pay the translate. If they're not paying you guys, the only thing that needs to be spent is translation. So we could send the translation June 1st. So we've got another month to work on the stuff that we want. I mean, so we have that. And, I have this antipathy to getting stuff done quickly in time for a funding deadline and having it not be it's not, I think we're not talking about MVP. We're talking about translations. We really want it to be as refined as we can. And the other thing, Quentin, I just want to go back to is if you could just look at that pet thing.
That's what I was trying to figure out. I mean, I might be able to do both.
I would do that.
If that's like a one-day migration, which is it won't take a lot of refinement for the migration. It'll just be plug and chug. So I
And
might be able to
do
do
you-
both, but yeah,
do
I'll
you think we
prioritize
can-
the 209A.
Yeah. And do you think we can integrate that into the big interview?
What I have to
Um,
figure out is what would be
Just to look at
tricky
it
to
first.
migrate into 209A are all the addenda, because those use a different system than our new addenda system.
Well, I mean, but I mean, so what I'm saying is the pet, move the pet, incorporate the pet
Right.
209A into.
Yeah. So what I meant was like like moving the documents over instead of just the questions would make
Oh, I
it
see.
adding a new form a lot easier, but it adds more risk because of because it's a bigger change because of the many addenda we have with the 209A. So
Right.
it might be possible.
Well, it's worth looking into.
I mean, I'll start out with doing a standalone. I'll start out by making a
Yeah.
standalone. Do you think you could bundle that with the Clavic money? Is that one of the questions for getting it translated? It's not many more screens, I guess. It's
No.
just going to be like a couple hundred words more.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not a lot more. And we just know.
Well, you could get it done separately then, in that case.
Yeah. And then we could probably see if we could fiddle it in. Yeah, get it in and then fit it in as when we're ready.
I'll think about that. Because actually, the one complication is like you don't want to have people translate the same words twice.
Well, if this is the advantage of staying with the same translation company, because it should go into their memory, translation memory.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay. All right. I think I can make this my project for next week, and then I'll know by the end of the week how it's going.
Okay. All
Should be
right.
pretty good.
And then, so I just committed the language changes in the questions for the affidavit. Kate and I had a question. There's a tricky question about how did this incident make you feel? And if you're filing on behalf of your child, then you have to, you can't say, this made my child feel a certain way. So I played, Kate and I had a little bit of discussion, but I played around with something and got it in today, and I put it in a comment. So I need to run it by you, Kate, see what you think.
I thought that was fine. I thought it was fine.
Oh, well, I did a little bit more. Like, obviously you can't say what your child felt, but you can say what your child told you they felt, or something like that. So maybe I went overboard. So I put it in the comment.
Is too much. I don't know. Like,
Okay.
Did your child tell you how they felt?
Maybe you just have a look at it and see what you think, and then we can just refine it one way or just dump it or go back to it or whatever. And then the other thing was, so I've committed all that for the affidavit. I'm working on the plaintiff confidential information form. I just have some questions for you about, are we assuming that the child and the parent/guardian live in the same address? I have to go through these questions again one at a time, because they may be different places. And so then the contact information is going to be different from protecting the child's address, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can assume they live the same place.
Right. So I need to think we might need to add an extra question. Might need to do something a little bit different because of that. And there's also, I think there's a little bug. It's not a bug, but I think there's a variable, there's a function, I think it is, so that it changes the verb. You can do children as noun, and then there's a function that makes a verb agree with children as noun. And I think that that needs to be, it's not defined when you're looking after children under 18. And we're talking about the children okay, maybe you have a 16-year-old who's responsible for a 3-year-old. I don't know, but in that case, we need to get this verb agreement, and it's not working at the minute. The children as noun works, but the children verb agreement thing doesn't work. So I just discovered that this morning, just made a note of it. So I want to just check with Michelle and Quentin about that. I think that's the 209A. I think that's all the 209A stuff. And then I did meet with the special ed people last week about the CRA stuff. and they're very excited about this. And so I sent them the link. They didn't want to spend meeting time to look at it. So I sent them the link, and I think, Quentin, that's the same, that link is going to change, right? You've just updated it according to, you have it on the test server, the development server or something?
Yeah, it's on the test server, so the link will stay the same.
Yeah, okay.
If I
So I'll
make
just,
it myself.
yeah, I'll just remind them again to have a look at it and say, we think now we're at a point where we need their input on it. And I think the most complicated thing is that certificate of service where it's scary to say I've served when you haven't served. But other than that, I think that's everything from me.
All right, cool. Bryce, or Quentin, did we finish yours up? I can't remember if that rolled in.
That's it for me. Yeah,
Alright.
no, I just wanted to, that's it.
Alright.
And overlapped with Caroline, so.
Yeah, I was just making sure we didn't miss anything.
Do we
All right.
want to go over the like transitional variable at some point that determines the language for the rest of the questions based on the role of the user? Okay, we will cover it another
Yeah.
time. There's not
I
enough
think
time
that
right now.
sounds like
That's
that,
fine.
yeah. All right, Bryce.
Yeah, mostly just going through Tyler stuff still. I had a good conversation with Quentin today about just sort of some database implementation stuff and some good choices to go with there. Since I will likely say this again in the future, but I underestimated a bit of how complex the Tyler codes were. I thought there was like, here are some system codes, and like we'd be able to read it from a file and do that. But there are system codes that can sometimes be overwritten by individual court codes, and there are 20 different tables of these individual court codes. So it's just a lot more. And so I figured it'd be a lot easier, both like maintainable wise and also implementation wise, to get it in a database. So I'm just doing that. That's really it. A lot of technical stuff.
Cool. All right, Kate.
I don't think I really have anything. I put an error that my husband found using the motion to enlarge the appeal, but I didn't tag anyone. I put it in the channel on Teams.
Sure.
I should have tagged someone.
I'm gonna point you, Kate, at Quentin's question in commenting on the 209A motion to modify that he directed.
It's not 209A
towards
motion to modify, it's motion to enlarge.
So separately, since you don't have other stuff you're bringing up, I am bringing up for you, for you, I brought it up earlier, but you weren't here, we're getting the final check on the 209A motion to modify, and Quentin was responding to reviewing that. And I provided the link for reviewing that, but he had a question on something. Quentin, do you want to restate the question, or we can link? It's just in
Well,
Teams.
it's just that we have the helpline, the emergency helpline, at the end of the interview on the page,
like-
which I was thinking you might want to remove. So I don't know if you had thoughts on that. Since this is not a form that's probably going to be part of our agreement with the court. Maybe David has thoughts on that too.
Oh, like the court?
The
Yeah, is
court
it
helpline.
The court clerk number on there, but not the emergency help number is what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think the emergency, well, let me think
On the
about this for a
download
second.
screen. We're not taking it
On
off
the
the
download
front
screen.
page, just from the download screen.
Yeah,
So
I have a feeling
right
that,
now it lists two numbers. It has the clerk of the court that you're filing it in, which I think we should keep on. And it also lists the emergency number. I think it could be confusing for people which number to call.
yeah, I think
And they
the
also might not appreciate getting a call. on
Yeah,
that
take it out.
line.
yeah, I concur.
And do you want to review that? What we determined last time was that maybe a review from an SME, being you and Quentin. You have
I have
time
a
for that
very
this week,
bad,
or-
like 3 weeks coming up.
Okay.
So it would honestly probably be a while out. So
Do you
don't
wanna-
hold up on my account.
Do you want to ask Katie Milton to review it?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it before and I thought it was fine, pretty much there. But yeah, that could work.
Okay. If you, so the link's in Michelle, where's the
In
link to it?
Teams. It's in Teams.
In the
It's in the
209A.
209A channel,
channel?
I believe.
Okay. Okay,
And
I'll
then-
ask her to have a look at it. She's back
And then-
next week.
And then Kate, on your, the issue your husband found, which channel did you put that in? Did you put that in the appeals channel or? in the
Appeals
general
channel, yeah.
Okay.
And I meant to tag someone, but just didn't. So I just wanted to
Yeah, no, that's
make
good.
sure someone saw it.
Bye, Sarah. Oh, no.
All right, let's see if we can, so Lisa, this would be the point, if you wanted to, you could talk about what we generally been do stand up, we say sort of what you're working on, if you're having any blockers. So if
Okay, I'm gonna hope that I don't crash out again. So I'm looking at, all of you may be familiar with Technology Initiative Grant projects and the Innovation and Technologies Conference. I know Carolyn from those, Robinson. And so I'm looking at a potential project. We may be doing something with extending our services to rural areas. I don't have the green light yet. And then, of course, maybe eviction related forms. So DocAssemble is really new to me. This whole environment's new to me, but I went to the initial TIG webinar. I've only worked with A2JA and HotDocs in the past in terms of doing document assembly and some fillable PDFs. So I want to be open-minded to other platforms because that might A, suit our needs better, and B, y'all might be, it sounds like you're working on some things that might be highly relevant to what we're doing. And then, everyone wants to be more efficient. So that's one of the perspectives from which I'm coming to this group. Though I've got to admit, I had some other tasks I was working on when I did the initial boot camp with y'all. So I wasn't able to follow along lockstep, and I'm trying to catch up on the back end with that. And I also have an extremely active cat I'm trying to prevent from jumping into
Oh, what?
Zoom.
when the cat's active,
Jumping
as long
into
as
the
they're
Zoom
cute,
meeting.
they're supposed to jump into the Zoom.
She's-
That's the requirement.
She's super
actually.
cute. So my husband and I have been
Well, then you don't
amazed
keep
by
her
how
away.
Zoom-
Let her come to the screen. She can be involved.
Okay. She might have a
Lisa-
useful contribution. So that's where I'm coming from. And I hope that's useful to you all. And I'm glad I was able to contribute based on my experience with translations, because I've done automated and static forms in English and Spanish. I've occasionally had to use my French in reviewing material submitted by some of our partners, but I've worked with Spanish forms for a while, and we have a lot of Spanish speaking staff. Like I said, my structural language skills are good, but I always reach.
Oh, we hit the end of the stable.
That was a good long one, though. That was
Yeah,
great.
we had a good chunk.
We have
Lisa,
a
I
phone
wanted to
number she
check
could use
To make
call
sure
in on.
Lisa knew Amanda was doing DocAssemble projects. I don't know if she knew
Yeah.
Amanda from Lanyap. But maybe I'll message her on the chat.
Yeah. And then also, it seems like if she's thinking about TIG funding, aren't some of the Documate, they provide free stuff as well, the TIG grantees, right?
Boosting
Say
wise,
what?
yeah.
Documate,
What are you saying they do? They provide,
free hosting.
oh, free hosting, right, yeah.
So those are two. And so I don't know if Lisa can hear us or if she's entirely gone, but
We could just
Well,
remind
Quinn
her that
wrote
she can
in chat,
call in. She can use her
but-
phone and call in,
Yeah.
But
right?
she's not connected
Okay.
anymore.
Yeah, she's not
She's
connected
not on
anymore.
anymore.
She might have got disconnected before she could see my chat message too. But
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully she'll
Well,
be able
She's
she'll
in
be
the Teams,
around.
So
We'll let her know. Lanyap and Documate. All right.
Oh, she's coming back on.
Oh, there you are, Lisa. We were just saying, did you know about the work Amanda Brown's doing at Lanyap with DocAssemble forums? She's someone you might
I
want
know Amanda Brown. She and I don't get to communicate that often. And I
We
know
should.
on what she calls the feeder layer, and she circulated that. We had
Yeah,
some previous
that's
iterations. There actually is a fillable PDF that the Supreme Court put on its site that is supposed to be the mandatory form. So I know there's been some back and forth in the community to make sure that whatever she does comports with that, because
Yeah.
that's actually a mandatory form.
Yeah, they're
that the
also,
rules of
yeah, she's also, they're working on I don't know if you can hear me now because, oh, no.
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
They're also working on, not that form, so she actually did do that feed thing, she did it in a different tech, but she's doing doc assemble projects also in coordination with the Louisiana Supreme Court as part of the program that we were helping with. So that's something to know as well.
Yeah, she and I are on two different committees. I'm on the Access to Justice Committee. She's on the
Yeah.
Access to Justice Commission. And occasionally we all get together and we get to share. You'd think that we all would know exactly what. the
Only off
other
by
is
one
doing, but
word,
it doesn't
only off by one word. But that's why we're here, right? So we can say like, here's a connection that would make sense. And then the other one, if
Yes,
you're,
no, I know Amanda. Amanda used to work for our organization, but that's a great feed. So I should reach out to her and say, are you working on fiction forms? I know they're working on statewide forms, but I don't know how far along in the process they are. And they would save us all kinds of time if they have, of course, the automated housing related forms in the can. That would be great.
And
So-
even if they aren't working exactly on the forms that you're interested in, the fact that they're doing some doc assemble development could help you with your decisions.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The other folks we wanted to make sure you knew about were, do you know Documate, the company Documate?
Yes, I don't know them really, but I've heard of them. Yes.
So Quentin knows better what the shapes are, but they do free doc assemble hosting for TIG grantees. Is that correct?
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we've
the
always-
thing to keep in mind is we've talked with them about trying to sync up our work, but they're like 3 or 4 months behind in the version of DocAssemble that they run. So like our packages won't run out of the box. Want to be able to get to a point where we're going to basically freeze our version of DocAssemble, line it up with what they have, and they'll catch up to where we stop.
These
I'm
are
not sure.
I
great.
didn't know.
These are great.
Yeah. But if you're making determinations about sort of what environment to work and stuff, it's worth knowing that they're someone you should think about as well as far as resources.
Yeah, actually, we were thinking about Amanda for the, we have an SMS potential component, text messaging component, and that she actually came up in conjunction with that because she did successfully launch a project that relied on SMS technology, which is not what this group's about. But
Although you can do SMS
Amanda's
within DocAssemble.
yeah, we're all in the same, and actually Amanda used to work for Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, so I know her. It's just we're all in different units, and it takes, I know my exec director's in really close communication with her, so it's just a question of the information flowing to everybody before a
One
meeting
more
happens.
thing that's worth saying is LHI perennially says we want to try DocAssemble hosting, and I just had a feeler from them recently. But I think if you're interested in that and you're like, I would do it on LHI if you offered it, reaching out to Claudia or someone or Mark or someone at LHI and saying, hey, I'm interested in this, could be helpful. If you're like, I would do it with
Yeah, and
LHI.
Claudia is great to work with. We've worked with her for a long time.
There you go. Three
Just
touch
letting
points.
her know, you're like, hey, I want to do this DocAssemble project with you. That might sway their mind because they often are thinking about it and just I don't think have taken the plunge quite yet. They might.
I'm far from having mastered DocAssemble. I'm really just trying to have enough of familiarity with it, so I kind of know how it operates, GitHub operates. That's really where I'm coming at it from.
That's totally fair.
But
Yeah.
you all have been super helpful.
Come
Thank
on
you.
to Teaching
And I may have to
Tuesdays.
turn off my.
Come on to
I'm sorry?
Come on to Teaching Tuesdays, where you can ask lots of questions. That's a day for asking questions.
Okay. Well, also, I may have to shut down my camera because that seems to help my connection
bandwidth,
remain
that
stable.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who did we lose?
But
Oh,
thanks, everyone.
yeah.
Who did we
Kate.
lose? We lost
Kate.
Kate, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Cool. Well, nice. So, Lily.
Hi, just some quick updates. One is that Bruce reviewed my code changes for multiple attachments and gave me many good feedback. So got a few things I overlooked, and also he made some good comments made me think about certain things twice, because I worked on that project for quite a while because of many background. I don't want to get into it, but anyway, there are certain things when I first looked at them, I thought it one way, and then I just forgot about it. And then when he looked at it, and he asked me questions and made me rethink those. I really appreciated that. I think that's the best part about the peer review, because you, instead of just working on your own, you get some feedback from other people from different perspectives. So I really like that. So thank you, Bruce. Bryce.
Glad I
sorry.
helped. No, glad I helped.
The other thing I was working on was I made some pushes to the financial statement project. Well, that one was my very first formal doc assembly project. So there are certain things that did it like very awkwardly. And now when I look back, oh, there's a better way to do it. Like one big change I made was I use a lot of conditions as modifiers of the question blocks. But now I said, well, it's actually better to put them into the main logic block. I mean, the code, the main logic code block, which makes it more manageable and more flexible, because then you can add other conditions as things, as people give you feedback or make suggestions. And then you have one place where you can look at all these conditions as a whole picture. So not something I made a push for. I think that's the main thing I did this week. All right, that's it.
Cool. Well, good.
Awesome.
Good to hear you. All right, Tony, you got anything? Or just flying on the wall today?
Just flying on the wall today.
All right. In that case, then, it is my great pleasure